Hello everybody and welcome to the latest episode of SIPA Paranormal Chronicles. Today I am delighted to have Charlie Hall. However, she's not called Charlie Hall anymore. It's Charlie Hashtag Zombie Hickey Hall, but we'll get to that in a minute. Charlie is a paranormal writer, researcher, medium. She's the ambassador for Haunted magazine in the UK. She's a horror writer and she's a filmer and she does all that kind of stuff that we're going to talk to. So,
yes.
Charlie, welcome.
Hello. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me on. Yeah.
See, you didn't know I was going to do that, did you?
No, I didn't. Everyone's talking about my hickey at the minute, my zombie hickey.
So, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
We know that you've had another podcast with a very good friend of mine called Joe, and as you guys did it, hi Joe. Let's speak to Joe. So let's talk about your new name. Yeah, everyone's calling you Zombie Hickey. So let's please go with why are you now called Zombie Hickey?
Well, this was me and a local film crew. We recently made a film called Arty Politics. It's just a short film, and it's all about my character in it. I was a police officer turned zombie, and it was really funny because when they first asked me to do the film, I was kind of like, a police officer. And as soon as they said, you're going to be a zombie, I was so excited. I was like, yes, I'm going to do it, definitely. But the makeup artist, I mean, she was fantastic. And she did, everybody had all these sort of, bites all on our necks and on just sort of all around here. And they really looked like hickeys. So everyone said they looked like hickeys, even though they had the blood coming out and everything else. So that's why people started calling me that.
I really think that you should start like a fan group or get some T-shirts with Zombie Hickey on it, and then it'll be a sideline. So we know we've mentioned Zombie Hickey, and everyone's like getting on that bandwagon and call you that instead of Charlie. But last weekend you attended Horrorcon UK in Sheffield, which for all those that don't know is a Horrorcon, and it's in Sheffield. So you actually premiered a new movie as well.
Yeah, so that is a film by director Jem Carto, producer Owen Rees-Dane, Lake on the Cabin. And it's a really wicked short psychological horror that I got invited on to be production assistant. And last week we were absolutely ecstatic when we found out that we'd been selected for the Horrorcon UK, which is a big festival up there, really big event, and it was their 10th anniversary as well. But the film itself, it's about a lady who is an artist. She goes to a cabin and she's sort of struggling with mental health and with what's real, what's not real. And when she gets to the cabin, though, it's kind of like, is there something else there as well? So it's a really good, fun film, and I enjoyed my time on that so much.
Now, I've heard a little whisper that you've got a bit of a story about a mannequin.
Yes. Oh, it absolutely made my time on the filming because we had a mannequin in the film. She was one of the main parts in it, actually. And at one point, the director, he said, I really want to, go for a bigger scene in the film, like a bigger shot. And he said, because where we were, we had this just beautiful, beautiful big wooden cabin, by a lake that we had hired for the shoot. And he said, well, I want a picture of the mannequin over the other side of the lake. And we're like, what? This is a big lake. And so me and the producer, we literally half and half of this mannequin, carrying it along. And bearing in mind, this was winter. It was January. It was freezing cold. And we're like, oh, my goodness. And we got over the bridge, not realising the whole other side was thick, knee-deep mud. And, of course, we weren't exactly prepared. We were in, like, little trainers and not kind of, winter appropriate. And as both of us are hanging onto this mannequin, I got completely stuck in the mud. And I'm standing, I'm going, oh my God, I can't move. I was like, don't move, we're going to drop her. And literally the two of us ended up trying to pull each other out of the mud. It was just like something out of a comedy show. But we got her over the other side in the end, and the shot is absolutely killer. It's a wicked shot, but yeah, we nearly lost the mannequin in the process.
Oh no. Yeah, and I think as my friend Joe said, save the mannequin.
Yes.
The actors are expendable. So, where will this Lake on the Cabin be available for members of the public to watch? Or I
mean, at the moment, because it's going through the festival circuit, it's going through the events. It's not available at the minute, but after the festival, then we will upload it online. It will be put online, and we are at the moment working on a part 2. So yes,
excited.
Yeah, so we're really excited. We want to do something, more with that, because it's had such a great response so far as well. And we're so grateful, to the festivals. And as I said, Horrorcon was fantastic. All the costumes there, you should see it. All the people dressed up.
I was going to ask you about that. So let's go into Horrorcon, because I was going to ask you if the mannequin does autographs and selfies. But let's go on to the Horrorcon. So for somebody that doesn't know what Horrorcon is, but I can guess by the title, what went on there? What kind of things could you do? Could you see?
Yeah, I mean, there was all sorts of stalls. People selling horror books, horror films, amazing ornaments, pictures, posters, like everything horror you could buy there. But for me, because I haven't been to a big horror event like that one, I love the costumes. People really went over and above. There's Freddy Krueger walking around and Captain Howdy and zombies, and it was just fantastic. I absolutely loved looking at them all. I was like, can I have a picture of you? Picture, please?
Yeah. Because it's really funny, because I'm involved with Comic Cons over this side of the pond, and we get so many different costumes. And I think one of the best I ever saw, not quite horror, but it kind of is we saw husband and wife dressed in business suits, white shirt, black ties, and whenever they saw a Batman, they used to throw themselves to the floor and then put out a little sign saying Batman's parents. Which was absolutely really cool. But you see so many different costumes at these events. Yeah, these people must take months and months and months making these costumes.
Yeah.
And last year we had Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger, and the Nightmare on Elm Street cast in Montreal, and everyone was bringing the gloves for Robert to sign. And of course, a lot of these are made out of metal. So doing the job I got to do is can I have that? Thank you very much. You can have it back after the sign.
Oh no!
But is that the first time you've been to Horrorcon?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've been to some of the smaller Comic Cons, but not Horrorcon like that. Yeah, that was a new experience for me. It was brilliant.
Okay, so is it the same thing like a normal convention where you have celebrities from the world of horror?
Yeah, so they do, whereas, in some of the smaller events, everything's all in the one place. With this one, because there were also some higher profile actors and people there, they kind of had that separate to the main event. And then you had your actual film room where all the, films were screened. And I was very fortunate because I got to meet with Nicholas Vince from Hellraiser. So I was really excited.
Oh, that's really cool.
Nice guy. Yeah.
So were you there as media, for example, because you were part of Lake on the Cabin? Were you there as an attendee? Were you signing books, or what was your role at Horrorcon?
Yeah, I mean, we were literally just there because our film was screening, so we got invited to come along for that. And then it's just the perfect place to catch up with some of my horror friends and horror filmers and meet new people and find out a lot more about the industry. And
that sounds really cool. Okay, so that's all the stuff that's been happening over the last few weeks. We had to mention the Lake on the Cabin. We had to mention Zombie Hickey. So you've had a pretty much involved life with the paranormal. So can you start off with some of your earlier experiences with the paranormal and how you got involved to the person that you are now?
Yeah, I mean, from a very young age, I used to see and hear things that other people couldn't. I used to know things, like I would just meet people and I'd know something about them. And I mean, my mum, told me that when I was about, I think 3 or 4 years old, her and my stepfather heard me in a room, laughing hysterically. And they sort of went in the room to see what was happening. And my mum said, I was rolling around on the floor, like this, just giggling hysterically. There's no one else in the room. And then apparently they asked me what was happening and what was I doing. And I said, the man, mummy, the man's tickling me. And of course they're horrified. There's nobody there. And then she sort of said, asked me to describe the man and how I felt. And my mum does believe that the man I described was her father, who passed away when she was 13.
Wow.
Yeah. And ever since then, I mean, I started to it was worse in my teen years. My teen years, it got really quite heightened. I started getting really vivid dreams, and I'd wake up in the night seeing spirit. I would hear it all the time. I'd know when it was around, and I didn't really know what to do. So I joined a spiritual circle just to try and work out what it was and how I could live with it and deal with it. And then from there, I started doing mediumship. Started giving readings in spiritualist centres and to friends. And my mum's a medium as well, so she actually goes on stage with me. Sometimes we give linked readings together.
Oh, cool. So one thing I'm always curious about, there must have been a time in your life where you stopped thinking it was something strange that maybe only happened to you or happened, you weren't sure if it was happening to other people. Yeah. So was there a turning point in your life where you accepted what it was and rather than kind of turned away from it, you actually accepted it, embraced it and moved forward with it?
Yeah. In my teens, when it got, it was really got quite sort of heavy and prominent and all the time, I did struggle with it. And I sort of, as I said, went to the spiritualist churches, started to find out more. And then I guess I just kind of accepted from then, this is just part of me and this is what I can do. And my mum does it as well. I did kind of move away from it a little while in my later teens, because my music career then took over and I did that full time. But it was always there. So no matter where I was, what I was doing, even if I didn't fully focus on it, always, sometimes if I've been out and about and even just with strangers, I can sometimes see spirit standing behind them or around them. So it was just there, but I just didn't actually connect with it more until later on after my music career again. And I went fully back into it.
And we can talk about your music career in a little while, because we know that you've got a little bit of a famous father, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I want to keep on with your mediumship right now. Yeah. So for somebody that admits that, as far as they're aware, I don't have any abilities, when you experience a spirit, how do you see it, or how do you feel? How do you hear? Mm-hmm. Can you differentiate between a human and a spirit, or do they look similar? Can you kind of give me the insight on that, please?
The only way I can kind of describe it, because it's quite hard to describe actually, is like, say when I'm looking with my actual eyes, how we see normally, it's almost like I see inside my mind here. It's an overlay, like another screen over the top of it. So I'll be looking at someone and then I'll see almost like a silhouette of someone else behind them, or it comes through, like if I said to you now, what did you do yesterday lunchtime? And then the way in your mind then you think and see that vision of, I don't know, where you were in the coffee shop at lunchtime. That is then how I see the information from the spirit or about the people in their lives. It then comes through in like pictures, like a memory. It's strange though, because when I'm on platform, I never know how spirit are going to come through, because sometimes I just sense them and then I hear things. But again, even with the hearing, when I say hearing, it's not like I actually hear it all the time in my physical ears, like I do sometimes. But again, it's like it's in your head and I just hear it. And then eventually I start to get the visions as well. So it's quite complex and hard to explain, but yeah.
And I find that really fascinating, because I've asked a couple of different mediums exactly the same question. And that answer is different every single time.
Yeah.
And it's really cool that you get different perspectives of how they hear, see, etc. Just for the record, yesterday lunchtime, I was sat in the lunchroom in the office watching zombies, because we're going through The Walking Dead at lunchtime. So we're back to zombies and hickeys. But so how did you get into the writing? Because you mentioned that you had a bit of a musical career.
Mm-hmm.
So before we go into the writing, let's start about your musical career. So how did you get into the musical career, and did you think you were going to be famous and on top of the pops every week?
Well, I've always, when I was a child, I just was always drawn to creative things, whether it was writing, music. I used to sing in choirs, all my favourite sort of pop stars at the time and rock stars. I used to just, learn their songs, sing them, play them on guitar. And then I joined my first band as a guitarist when I was 14, I think. And I just loved it so much. I was like, this is what I want to do. I lived and breathed music, and it was nice because I actually sort of in my lyrics and in the music that I wrote took out, it was an expression of all my feelings and everything. So it actually helped me through life as well. But then I eventually joined a girl rock group called the Suffragettes. And we got signed to a subsidiary of Sony, and we went to America, did our album over there, and toured the UK lots and played with some really cool bands. And it was very good fun. Very good
fun. And did you think that this is a career for me? This is how my life's going to go forward?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to do music, and I hoped I was going to do music. And then, the universe just took me on a different path afterwards. But no, it was great, especially in America. Loved America.
So would I be right in thinking that you had some inside influence from your music career due to who your father is?
Well, the funny thing is, I didn't actually meet my father until I was a teenager. I knew of him. I'd heard about it because my dad, Clive Culbertson, was in Van Morrison. And funny enough, it's really bizarre because we never knew each other and we lived in completely different places. But we both play bass. We're both writers. We're both, singers. I'm a medium. He's a mystic. And so we were exactly like each other. And when I did meet him, it was great because I was going through my music career. He was advising me with, everything I was doing. And he's now a producer. So he's got a recording studio. So, I'm able to go over there and record when I want to and when I need to. So it's really good fun. And it's nice working with him as well. Putting both of them.
Is it the case of like, Charlie, you need to do that song again? Yes, Dad.
Well, it's funny because we think quite similarly. And I remember when I did my last EP over there, he was like, "Darling, I think you need to add another wee harmony." So, and I'd be like, "Yeah." And then we had another one on top, and he was like, "Yep, that works, darling." So we really bounced off each other, and it worked. Yeah. But yeah, his knowledge and what he is way beyond mine on the tech side of music. So, it's been really good working over there with him.
That sounds like a complete blast. So, you started off being in a girl rock band, and then all of a sudden, your career path took a dog's leg, and you went to a different direction.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think after the music, I sort of just pondered on a while about what I was going to do and where I was going to go. And again, I'd gone back to writing. I started writing some short stories, and then I did actually head back to the mediumship and the spirit work. But this time I got more and more into the more paranormal investigation side of it. So I was doing both. I was, carrying out investigations around the UK. I've done a lot of in Ireland, Northern Ireland. And I ended up just, contacting a few magazines, and obviously I contacted Haunted. And I started writing for them actually it was during COVID. Started writing for them, and then I had some horror fiction published as well. And I just loved it so much, and I wanted to write about my experiences because people ask me a lot about where I've been, what I've experienced, paranormally. And I thought, well, I love writing, I love the paranormal and the mediumship. Why not do both together?
Exactly. Sounds like a great plan. So, can you remember your very first paranormal investigation you went on?
Oh, my very first investigation. Do you know, I've been on so many, I can't even remember the first one because I've been to so many places.
Yeah.
It probably would have been some of the Northern Irish ones. Do you know, I actually can't remember my first one. I've done that many, I can't remember.
I'm so glad that I've caught you out on that one.
Yeah. Because I always, wherever I go, in fairness, wherever I go, even if it's not like an actual official paranormal investigation, i.e. with all the gear and all the equipment, everywhere I go, I can't help but do a mediumistic sweep. So it will be even if it's just down into a new town, or if I go to a church, like a nice church or some ruins or anywhere, I always tune in. Yeah.
Because it's really interesting because, as I mentioned, my friend Joe, we went to a jail about an hour and a half away.
Yeah.
And we had a medium with us. It's the first time I've ever worked with a medium. And she's going, and this place was like ground floor, first floor. And she went, "There's a third floor to this." And I went, No, there isn't. There never has been. It's always been just the 2 levels. She went, no, there's a 3rd floor. And I'm going, there isn't. There is not a 3rd floor. And at the very end, she says, yeah, is there anything that I don't know? And I said, well, and this was like in the deepest of winter. So you go outside, you've got like 2 foot of snow. So we couldn't really go out into the courtyard, but that's where they used to hang people.
Oh.
And there was 3 graves in the courtyard that because of the snow, she didn't really pick up on because she never walked over that area.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, there's 3 people buried. And she went, where? I went, in the courtyard. And she went, there's your 3rd floor. There's your 3rd level.
Yeah.
And she was, because she was sensing the bodies lower than ground level. In her mind's eye, she was picking up that there was 3 levels to this building.
Yeah, something else there.
And I thoroughly enjoyed working with her because, I like to call myself a skeptic with an open mind. So if you come on an investigation with us, I'm going to keep information from you deliberately because I want to see what the connection is. So if somebody got hung by the name of Peter, and then you come up with, this guy Peter, then I can put a connection to it, and that's better evidence.
Oh, definitely.
So, So is that the kind? Well. You do exactly the same.
Yeah. So if I know every medium says this, but I do, like with any place I go to, I'll know that somebody said, oh, this place is possibly haunted, or this is a cool place, but I don't look anything up. I don't find out about it because I like to just go in and sense whatever, I can feel and what I can see. And it's strange because I pick it up in normal everyday life as well. It's just kind of there wherever we go into. I mean, you talking about jails. We actually went to the Crumlin jail in Northern Ireland. That's in Belfast. And I mean, that was intense. I mean, always when you go to somewhere that's got more of a negative past and a negative history, I get super sensitive, like I feel a lot more. And I remember in the Crumlin Road Gaol, when I got into the reception area, I straight away felt like I was surrounded by a lot of people. And I sort of stood and I was kind of like, oh, this feels a bit uncomfortable here. But I went with it. And then all of a sudden I saw a group of male spirits all sat together, sort of looking at each other and chatting. And it was really strange. And I moved on then into they've got like an underground tunnel. Which leads from the jail into the courthouse across the street. And like you said, because I don't look up the story, and I'm walking along with my mum, and a spirit girl, a little girl, to my left side, she came past and she looked at me and giggled and ran off ahead. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's a child down here. And my mum saw her as well, and she was like, oh yeah, I can see the child. And I thought, that's really strange. Why is there a child in the jail? And literally, I asked the little girl in my mind as to what her name was. Now, I actually heard it as Annabelle. And literally a few minutes later, the tour guide who had gone on up ahead, he turned around and he said, as well known, we have the ghost of a wee girl in here called Isabel. And of course, me and my mum have gone, and everyone looked at us, of course, and then we had to explain. And we told him, and he was like, oh my goodness, you can see her. What does she look like? And when we came sort of out of there, and I mean, I don't know if you sort of felt any vibes when you go into the actual wings of the jail, how it, obviously, it has soaked up many years of negativity in there. And one of the wings on the top floor, I was walked in on the ground floor, and there was a male energy pacing back and forth up on the upper floor. And all I felt in here was aggression. It was awful, like really, aggressive, hate, anger. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I kind of looked up and I thought, I need to get out of here, because it suddenly felt like, I don't know, the energy was trying to attach with me somehow. And I remember my mum, she sensed it, but she was like, are you okay? What's happening? And I described. And the only way I can explain it is like it felt all of a sudden that all his negative emotion and feeling went like straight down to me. And it was awful. Get me out, get me out, get me out. And I had to then just get out just to, cleanse myself and get that negativity away again. So I do pick up intensely on things wherever I am. Yeah.
So this is where I'm going to start getting really curious now, because you said that you walked into a room and you saw a group of male spirits.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not influenced in that kind of ability,
Yeah.
do they see you the same time as what you see them? So, if you're walking down the road and there's a bunch of guys sat on a bench or a wall, they may go, look at this girl walking past.
Yeah.
So, do you kind of get the same kind of what's the word I'm looking for? The same kind of feeling, or do you actually see spirits doing the same thing? Like, oh, this girl can see us, this girl can hear us. Do you kind of get that?
It's really strange because I was actually talking to someone about this recently, about how all of this works. Because, like everyone else, I'm exploring. I don't have the answers, and I'm curious about all of it myself. And sometimes, like with that experience at the jail, now when I looked at them and I saw them in front of me in the corner, I then got the feeling, because they looked up, I get the feeling then that they are looking at me and they know I can see them. Same with the guy in the wing. But then other times when I connect with spirit, or I'm giving, a message, it's more like I'm actually watching something play out, something from the past or a situation.
Right.
So it's different depending on what I'm connecting with and where I am, because it can sort of play out in different ways. But when I know that they sense, or whatever it is, the energy senses me too, I feel it. And I know either by how they look at me or how I always get a feeling in my gut or my chest. Yeah, it's a strange one.
So you've been to Crumlin Road Gaol with your mum.
Mm-hmm.
You was experiencing that. Was your mum experiencing something different at the same time, or was you experiencing similar kind of events that were happening? So how do you two work together when you go to something like that jail?
Yeah, normally, I mean, at the jail, she did, because she senses more than she sees, whereas I see and hear as well. So she sensed the child go past as soon as I had said, oh my goodness, and I felt the child and saw the child go past. With her, she has more of a knowing, like a sense and a knowing, whereas mine's more audible, visible, but I do feel it as well. So it's strange because sometimes she'll see something or I'll see something, but then we can both actually go, hang on, and then tune into it. So even if I don't see straight away the same thing or energy she's talking to, we can tune into it with each other and then connect to the same thing.
So because you and your mother, let's say you kind of connected on the medium level, can you kind of sense things are happening in each other's lives at the same time, or sort of like like Charlie's having a really bad day, I better phone her up because I know she's upset about something. Does it that kind of sense, or is it something completely different?
Well, we do get that as well because my mum and I are really close. So we do pick up on each other just in our normal lives. Like I'll sort of, she'll feel one day, getting a funny feeling about, sure, I'll give her a ring, and I get the same thing. So we do pick up on that, and we do get it with some of our family members as well, like especially mum. She is very in tune with the family. She will pick up on if someone's ill, if something's wrong, like our family across in Ireland. She'll pick up a lot more remotely like that than myself. Yeah.
Okay. So how many times have you been to the Crumlin Road Gaol?
I've been there twice.
And for both times, how did both visits differentiate between the two? So the first time you went, you saw the group of men and you saw the guy on the upper level. Was that was the first time?
Yeah, I got most of it on the first time, actually, the first time I went.
So what did anything different happen, or anything more sinister or more what's the word, more like noticeable happen on the second time?
Yeah. Ironically, I got less on the second time when I went. I could still, funny enough, in that foyer, the entrance bit where I said the reception, I sensed the same thing of feeling very, very like crowded in there with lots of people when there was hardly any of us in there. Now, I felt that there was somebody behind us following us down in the tunnel. Well, I say luckily, I didn't, sense the man in the upper cell this time when I had that really intense experience. So I don't know whether that's because I just picked up on everything going there the first time that maybe I didn't sense as much. But yeah, I didn't get as much at all the second time.
Okay. So when you go to these locations, do you prepare yourself before you go in? Like, do you say a little prayer? Do you cleanse yourself? Do you do a strict practice before you go into any of these locations?
I'll be honest, I used to meditate every time before I carried out any kind of mediumistic practice. Before I went on platform, I would have a little like mantra and thing that I used to do. But I started to realize that you don't always, for me personally, I don't always need to do that, because I thought I needed to do some kind of, talk or meditation beforehand. But I find that it just happens anyway. But I do, just for my own peace of mind as well, when I finish, an investigation or being in somewhere, especially if it's somewhere like that, I do say, like a little mantra. I say thank you to spirit. And I obviously say, this is my time now. We can talk again another time. And I do switch off. I do try to switch off from it afterwards. Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned about switching off. And I've spoken to a medium before about having that ability to switch it on and off. And she described it like an old-fashioned radio where you can click it on and click it off. Do you have the same kind of ability, or does it bleed into your everyday life?
It does occasionally just naturally happen. Like there was one time I was out with my sister-in-law, and she introduced me to one of her friends, a lady I'd never met before, and we're sitting in a coffee shop, and all of a sudden, like I didn't even intend to tune into any of this. I was chatting to the lady, and this spirit dog ran under the table. I'm sort of looking, I kept looking like this, like literally like this, and in the next minute, I saw a lady standing behind her that looked like. Do you remember Ma Larkin from the Darling Buds of May?
Oh yes.
Kind of looked like that, like her. And I thought, what's going on? And in the end, my mum was there, and she said, "You're seeing someone, aren't you?" I was like, "Mm-hmm." And that's the thing, though. I know not to sort of talk to some people about it when I don't think they would like it, or just I get a feel for the situation, whether I can talk about it or not, because some people don't like talking about that stuff. But I knew with this lady I could, and I spoke to her, and funny enough, I described the pet and the relative, and she was like, "Oh my God, you've got that spot on, that's my nan," and she had a dog. And it was funny because we both turned around and said the dog's name, and I said, "Oh, the dog," I heard the name Polly, and she was like, "Oh my God, that was her dog's name." And so sometimes it does just happen when I'm out. I try not to. Like sometimes if it does happen and I'm in the middle of my normal life situation and I'm kind of like, not now, come back, I'll speak to you later, or that will happen. But when I go into somewhere historical, or I'm actually going into somewhere that's got paranormal history, then I actually do open myself up and let whatever happen. I know they say you shouldn't do that, but I personally, I've done it for so many years, I feel comfortable with that. And plus, in the name of research, I just love to experience everything. And like in our normal everyday lives, unfortunately, good and bad, and the balance does come together. And that's why I say to people, it's the same personally for me with my mediumship and paranormal work, is that I just experience all of it and see what happens.
And I like how you mention about spirit animals. So as a medium, you see spirits when you want to, and sometimes when you don't.
Yeah.
What about spirit animals? So, dogs, cats, what? Yeah. Do you see those as frequent, or are spirit animals not such a big, ability, so to speak?
Yeah, I don't see them nearly as much as I do with the actual spirit people, shall we say, or energies. Just occasionally, especially if I'm talking to an energy, like I'm giving a message and they did have pets, then sometimes I can see the pets they had, or I hear the names of them, but I generally don't see them as much at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, let's change tactics now. We're going to talk about one of your articles that you've written.
Yes.
And I know that you've corrected me on this, so I'm going to try and say it correctly this time. Dunluce Castle.
Dunluce Castle, yes.
Yeah, I said it right. Yay. I think it was Dunluck earlier. Dunluck.
Yeah.
So that's something that's quite passionate to you, Dunluce Castle.
Yeah.
So
Dunluce is absolutely beautiful, and it's unfortunately because it's on the top of a cliff. a massive big cliff in Northern Ireland. Some of it has started to crumble, and it was used as one of the filming sites for Game of Thrones. And
Oh wow.
don't know what it is about this castle. Like my family will tell you, ever since I was tiny, I felt drawn to the place. Even as a child, my aunt would say, every time we drove past, I'd be like, I need to go to the castle, I need to go to the castle. And I've been in it lots of times, and there's a weird familiarity that I feel in there. I can't explain it. And I used to have dreams about the place as well. I used to dream that I was flying over, because it's a ruin now. I used to dream about flying over the top of it. And then I used to see people falling backwards, like into the sea. It was really strange. Now,
Wow.
one of the things about this castle is, I found out after, when I got older, there is a story, but it is not known if it's true for sure, that apparently many years ago, part of the kitchen area, actually, because it's literally on the cliff edge, fell off into the sea. And unfortunately, lots of the serving staff, fell into the ocean and lost their lives.
And that would explain the falling.
Yeah. I don't know for sure, because that story is not confirmed, but I used to, when I was young, dream about flying over this. And I love it there because, like with all of the sort of Northern Irish, places and tales, is the folkloric stories of it go on for generations, but they all started with real historical stories and just get passed on. And people still tell the stories now to their kids. And Dunluce is the famous story of who lived in the castle with her father, the chieftain, and she fell in love with the son of her daddy's foe. And of course, he didn't want her to be with him. She got locked in the tower. And she, according to the historical legend, she used to wail with tears because she couldn't see the love of her life. And one evening, he went and broke her out of the tower. And they went down into, like, underneath the castle. There's a beautiful, beautiful cave known as the Mermaid's Cave. And he took her down there, took her in a little rowboat, to take her away. And unfortunately, a storm hit. And they were smashed against the rocks in the boat, and they both lost their lives. And the sad thing is, there's many, many, many reports of her wailing in the castle, like still being heard from the crying, but also she's now known as the Banshee of Dunluce Castle. And obviously, Banshee, the word itself is actually known as Queen of the Fairies. And they say that, Banshees always came to foretell death. And they've now placed that story with her, sad story of the castle. And people still see her on the rocks. She's been seen many a time. And yeah.
Now, I know that the common stories about banshees is, like you just said, they are the tellers of death, so to speak, and they will pull sailors into the water. And so, would you actually term her as a banshee, or would you just kind of call her as a wailing, like, woman who's forlorn in love?
Yeah. They're so, in the story, in the past stories, it was just, I guess, associated with her because of her trauma, and she used to wail in the tower like a banshee. People heard it all the time. But what they do say is that where, unfortunately for her, her body was never recovered when the boat, unfortunately, capsized. And therefore, one of the stories I'd heard over there was that they feel, because she was denied a Christian burial, that they said that's why she's on the cliff and why she still wails. So I'm not sure for definite, but that's the story that that's what they say. And they believe that she, is the Banshee of the castle.
And, I know that you've said that Dunluce Castle is very close to your heart. Is there any, like, other investigations or stories that or experiences that have happened while you've been there? Because you've been there more than once, correct?
I've been there quite a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there any other experiences that come to mind that you can talk about?
Yeah, at Dunluce, for me, it was mainly the dreams I had, and a feeling of, I know it sounds kind of bizarre, but sometimes I kind of felt I knew where some of the rooms were in the castle. It was really strange. Like, I'm talking when I was young.
Like
Kind
deja vu? Or
Yeah, it was just like it seemed familiar, and I'd be like, oh, I need to go to that room there, or I have to go over there, like I knew what they were and why they were there. It was really, really strange, but it was mainly just a knowing and a feeling, and the dreams for me with that place. And I said, even my family members, all thought it was just bizarre the way I was so drawn to it. But I never knew exactly why. Yeah.
Do you think it's possible that you may have been there in a previous life and that's why you're drawn to it?
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. I don't know for sure. I mean, it would be amazing if I was. I would love to be connected with there.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of places over there that I feel quite connected to. And the funny thing is, when I looked at the histories and the backstories, some of these places where I felt familiarity are actually linked by the same families and spirits. So
Right.
that's really interesting.
Yeah, because you mentioned that you feel like you've been there before and you kind of knew where some of the rooms was. So the fact that you've got a passion for the place and you kind of have that deja vu feeling
and the dreams,
it would kind of make sense. If you want to go down that road, it would make sense that you've been there in a past life and you're just reliving what's happened in the past and you're going back because you love it so much.
Yeah, I did think about having a regression to sort of, within my Irish heritage, have some kind of regression just to see what happened and what came out of that. I think that would be really interesting. Yeah.
We need to do that, and we'll do that. We'll have a road trip to Ireland and we'll crack on. So I know you've got another love of your life. It's not a guy. It's actually Bonamargy Friary.
The Bonamargy is my baby.
Oh, see, I've said it wrong. See, I know I wasn't going to get every name correct.
No. Well, funny enough, linking to what I was just saying about other places connected, the Bonamargy Friary is in Ballycastle. And again, the strange thing with that was my dad and I, we were just, like we do, we drive through the country on road trips, just look for places. And we happened to stumble across this ruin one day. And we both I said, oh, that looks really great. And he said, yeah, let's stop. And we went in there and it's just, again, a ruin. And there's loads of, if people are willing to spend the time to explore, there's some really unusual graves in there, headstones with strange angels, Masonic, all sorts in there. And again, I felt really familiar. And I was like, what's going on here? I don't understand. And we're walking around. And we found this really strange headstone in there, right at what would have been the entrance to the friary. And when I went away and researched this place and I looked into it, it's actually linked to Dunluce Castle. Yeah, so the people, the McQuillan clan, who used to, we're talking like in the 1500s, that used to have Dunluce, then also were part of the Bonamargy Friary, and their families used to go there to pray, and then I believe the clan took it over. And the MacDonalds, who took over Dunluce, again, also took over Bonamargy. And I mean, the main story of this place is it's about Julia McQuillan. So, I said about the unusual headstone by the entrance of the church. I mean, there never used to be hardly anything on Bonamargy. I mean, I researched for a long time and I've been back and forth there several times because I just feel like something lures me there, like I'm drawn to the place, like I've been there before, same as Dunluce. Anyway, Julia McQuillan was a lady who went there. She's known as the Black Nun. And I mean, they're not too sure why she was called that. I think she was a bit reclusive. They said, her image was, she was quite sort of dark and spooky, that kind of thing. But she was also a prophetess. And she used to have visions. She had a second sight. And from the information that I found, there was, 7 main visions and prophecies that she had, said to people and talked about. Just touch upon a couple of them is like one, she used to see ships without sails sailing across the harbour in Northern Ireland, like hundreds and hundreds of years before steamships were even made. She described them. She also said a very prominent vision about a local river where the water would run red. And years later, people have associated that with a story, unfortunately, of a local mill worker who fell into the river and unfortunately passed away because they got dragged into the water wheel and the river ran red. And then I think the one that's most prominent is she gave a very specific prophecy about a priest who was going to die before Mass at a local place called Pan's Rocks. And then in 1940s, I believe, there was a Father James McCann, a red-haired priest. She said a red-haired priest. Actually, before Mass, went over to Pan's Caves and Pan's Rocks, where it's by the sea, to swim before going to Mass. And unfortunately, there is actually a hidden whirlpool over there in Pan's Rocks, under the cave. And he got pulled into that and he passed away. So people have associated all her stories have actually matched up with certain occurrences that have happened in that area over time.
That is crazy. I can see why there's so much attraction, because, you know, I think everybody, if they see ruins of some sort, always like to go and have a wander around and just to see what they can find. And I know you've got many, many, many more stories, because we've spoken offline, funnily enough. and I'd love to talk about more of these, but we are coming to the end. So this is your 3 minutes of fame. I'd like you to if people want to read your books, I'd like you to tell me about your books. I'd like you to tell me what's coming up for Charlie Zombie Hickey Hall, and when the T-shirts are coming out.
Obviously, I am, writing Haunted magazine, so I've got a feature coming out in June, and then I've got one ready to roll for September. Book-wise, I've got one of my horror fiction stories is out in the Laid to Unrest anthology, a horror anthology at the moment, which is on Red Cape Publishing. And I'm just working on films. So we're just still going to go through going through the festival circuit with Lake on the Cabin. And we are actually working on a bigger film as well. And hopefully our Arty Politics, the zombie film, should be out later in the year as well. So lots of writing, lots of filming, and keeping busy.
And that's the main thing, right?
Yeah.
Charlie, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
Like I said, I could talk to you all day. Yeah. And we'll make my friend Joe jealous, because my podcast lasted longer than his podcast. Let's not go. But seriously, Charlie, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you again very soon. Thanks for your time. Take care.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay.
Take care. Bye.